Hi there.
Whoops.
Take two. Man, we were having a really good show.
That was a fantastic show.
Oh, man. All right. So, once again, I've done this twice now. I don't know what my problem is. I never have this issue when we're recording, but apparently live shows just completely throw me off. Anyway, welcome to Bourbon Turntable. We are the show that blends the love of music with the love of whiskey. Believe it or not, this is our 100th show. I've done this 100 freaking times, and here I am messing it up. Oh, Lord. Maybe I was too proud. I didn't think I was, but I needed to be a little more humble. Anyway, hey, Drew, how are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. I'm like halfway through my whiskey already.
Second
time's the charm, but
we were well into an outstanding show. And
I'm not complaining.
Anyway, but we've done it once. We can do it again. And our special guest tonight is none other than James Spader, or also perhaps the lead singer of the Smashing Pumpkins. I'm not sure which, but Alan Bishop. Glad to have you with us.
Yeah, glad to be here. Fat, way less talented version of Billy Corgan for sure.
Well, I don't know. Have you heard the new Smashing Pumpkins album?
I haven't, but I bet he's making more money than me.
Probably so.
And he owns NWA. I mean, come on.
Hey, we want to tell you, first of all, we're doing a show tonight called The 7 Bad Words. We're kind of taking a riff off of Mr. George Carlin's act and talking about the 7 bad words of music and whiskey. So we'll get into that in just a second. Before we do that, I want to tell you about Bar Cart Co-op. Alan, I'm sorry, you've got to run down the exhaustive list of all your shows.
Again. Yeah. So I've got Distillers Talk with Christy Atkinson. That's where we interview distillers from all over the world, whether they be home distillers, moonshiners, or legal distillers, and get really dorky and into the weeds about all things distilling related. And then I've got the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute on YouTube, which is sort of catered towards home distillers, but also somewhat legal distillers. I take your questions about distillation and try to answer them to the best of my ability. I have the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute Sacred and Profane podcast, which is a occasional 20-minute rant podcast that I do on Spotify about whatever distillation topic is interesting me at that time. And then I have the If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything podcast, which I run with my wife, Kimberly Marie Bishop, who has to put up with this stupid shaved face now. And that's our kind of Fortean, high strangeness, paranormal, UFO, etc. Show, which has really kind of taken off this year and has been a absolute blast to record. So I also run a show on the side that's all about Jolie's nasty OnlyFeed account. She said in our group text earlier that she got a foot massage. I hope that guy was able to mind the dew claw.
Speaking of Jolie's feet, my whiskey den. I don't know what that means. I didn't know how to transition from that, but my whiskey den with Pat and Mike and Mitch every Monday night, 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central Time. My whiskey den, where craft whiskey is king. They have a lot of fun shows. The one Monday night where they're talking about what grinds my gears, that was on there, and it's just payback. Payback's tough because they were running late getting their show started Monday night. So I'm just giving them grief in the chat. And so here we are. Oh, man. Speaking of Mike, let's hear from him for just a second.
Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. Hit that bell notification to find out when new episodes are coming out, which do come out every single Wednesday on all of the services, Spotify, Apple Music, Google, maybe Amazon, definitely YouTube, and always hit that like button, but hit it an odd number of times. So then that way it stays as a like.
Thanks, Mike.
In that one, real quick, I got to say this. So the previous one that nobody else saw, he said Wednesdays. This time he said they do. Which they do.
They do. They do. Oh, man. I'm not going to say anything because I just can't. I can't say anything. But I tell you one thing I can say. we've got a great announcement for Bark Art Co-op. We're welcoming a new entity, new show, new person to our Bark Art Co-op family. David Levine from Whiskey in My Wedding Ring. David does a fantastic podcast. He has a nice little website where he posts whiskey reviews. David, he'll be a great addition to the group. He's a smart guy, super nice guy, and we'll be having him on shows here and there. Hopefully he'll be on a show where it actually starts when it's supposed to start. And anyway,
he's an awesome guy, and he's gonna be a great addition overall for sure, without a doubt.
Yeah. So
listen there real quick too on another show. Mitch Weddle has done a fine job.
Yes.
As well. So
yeah.
I don't know if anybody tells him that, and I don't want to give Mitch too many compliments ever. Just saying. I really like Mitch, but I don't want to give him compliments. But good job, buddy.
No, I agree. Mitch has been a great addition to the show. He really has. He's fit in really well. He's funny. Has a different sense of humor. With it's kind of dry, but just cracks you up and knows his stuff. So this was the message that my lovely wife posted. Oh wow,
that's great.
Oh, wow. So anyway, sorry, honey. Sorry to our lovely audience out there. Wanted to run through a few quick announcements with you. First of all, from Bagman, Steve Gorman's latest group. Steve's been on the show a couple of times. They've got some new music that's streaming on Spotify and Apple right now, and it's really, really good stuff. I highly recommend you listen to it. They've got 3 more shows coming up later this month. August 22nd in Evanston, Illinois. August 23rd in Newport, Kentucky. Drew and I are going to be there, so come check us out. Well, come see us. Check out the band. And then August 24th in Nashville. So if you're in those areas, be sure to see them. Our good friends Jason and Lacey with Bourbon House, they just announced today they've signed a record deal with Fret Bar Records. So I think we're going to be seeing some new music from them later this year. Look for it on Fret Bar Records. We'll keep you posted here as well. Buzzard's Roost, Jason Bronner, Buzzard's Roost Whiskey Row Experience. They are launching their still. I think they're going to be doing the inaugural run of that on August 17th. There's still time, I believe, to get your suggestions in for what the still name should be. You'll win fabulous prizes if they choose that name. So be sure to stop by Buzzard's Roost on the 17th if you can. It'll be a big celebration there. Standing there next to that still is Ethan. He's the distiller there and happens to be Steve Nally's grandson. So he's got some whiskey chops in his lineage, and it's not going back 14 generations to his great grandpappy that came over on the Mayflower. Enough of that. Parker Barrow. I post a lot of stuff, me sitting on the deck, listening to music and drinking whiskey. And one of the bands that I've recently found was a band called Parker Barrow. They are coming out with an album on August 11th. I think it's their first full-length album. They'd released an EP, I think, 2 years ago. Check them out. Really, really good stuff. They've got 3 album release shows coming up, August 10th in Nashville, August 11th in Covington, Kentucky, August 12th in Waynesboro, Virginia. And Drew and I are recording a show with them on Sunday. So look for that real soon, too. Finally, Drew, what's up with you?
I'm doing stuff, man. So as the time of this live stream, I've got a gig Friday night at the Saints Sky Bar over in St. Matthews. The following week, I will be downtown at O'Shea's on Whiskey Row, not the Highlands location, for those of you from the area. That'll be a full band. We're kind of warming up for the gig the following week. That'll be at the Norton Commons Amphitheater as part of the Watch Hill Proper Whiskey Festival. So if you're in the area, I think there are still some tickets available. It'll be a great day. Lots of whiskey samplings, good showing from some distilleries, and some really great local bands, ours included. So very excited about that one. We hit the stage, I think, around 4:15, but I believe you'll have a great time no matter what time you show up that day. It's hard to go wrong with, whiskey, music, and food.
And that gives me plenty of time to grow a creepy mustache and make a shirt that says Drew Crawley's #1 fan.
Please, It's tough to bug me more than Kevin yelling Freebird every 15 seconds. So you can come out and try something else. It'll.
What, I look like
build
a
me up
fucking
little.
jukebox? Pop a quarter up my ass.
Yeah. Well, we've worked out just enough measures of that song to piss people off when they yell it. We'll start playing it for about 8 measures, something like that, and then we all just put our instruments down and do something else. So that's the new way we handle it.
Worth it.
Such
Every
disrespect. All right. We do have, I do want to share with you something that you may not know yet, which is not good news. Robbie Robertson of the band passed away today at 80 years old. If you are unfamiliar with the band, you need to fix that pretty quickly. One of the greatest musical rock bands that I know of. Just the musicality and everything they did was just next level. Robbie Robertson wrote most of the songs for the group and played guitar. Didn't sing a whole lot with the group, but his debut solo album, self-titled solo album, came out in '87, I think it was. It's one of my favorite albums of that decade. It's just terrific. So hate to see Robbie Robertson pass.
Drew, I had a better idea. So what you do,
Hit me.
you just play the first bar, let them think that you're going to do it, and then you learn that fucking Rick Astley song.
The Never Gonna Give You Up.
Yeah, you live Rickroll everyone.
That's not a bad idea, sir. Need to get you in a band meeting.
Right.
Give you credit for the pitch. We'll split the tips or the hate money that gets thrown at us on that.
I mean, James Spader's got to make money somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh,
All
goodness.
right. So we are, what we're drinking tonight is supposed to be something that our guest host created. So you can go that way, you can go a different way. Drew, what do you have?
Yeah, I've got some of the Lee W. Sinclair pick. I found this at Frankfurt Avenue Liquors here in town. Got that a couple months ago, and this is my third or fourth time cracking this one. So very much enjoy it and excited to have it again this evening.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I have this. I think this is from Reverend Thomas Green. Actually, this is some sort of smoked corn whiskey that is, I think, aged in a Gary Heimgartner barrel. It is. Oh my gosh, that's just gorgeous. So hats off, beards off to Reverend Thomas Green. Alan, what might you be drinking this evening?
I don't drink trash whiskey, so I'm drinking Kessler's.
Oh my goodness! Oh my
Just
goodness!
drinking coffee. I'm trying to behave right now. So I had a bottle of Iron Root Harbinger brought to me as a gift, and as always, that bottle disappeared very, very quickly, and mistakes were made. So
shaving mistakes were made. All right.
Yeah.
So we're tonight we're going to talk about 7 bad words of whiskey and music. Before we jump into that, any thoughts on Carlin?
Yeah, absolutely legendary for sure. One of my favorite comedians of all time. I mean, him, Richard Pryor, Red Fox, Bill Hicks. That's easily my top 4, without a doubt.
Wow. Awesome. Yeah, I didn't come to George Carlin obviously as it was happening. I think he had passed by the time I had an awareness of who he was, but obviously heard the 7 dirty words, bit. And then, I was doing a little looking into him. I didn't realize he put out a special a year for like 12 years in a row, which I'm not a stand-up comic, but I've got some friends that are, and I very much try to keep up with that world. That's an incredible rate. And it means that man's brain had to have been working all the time. His tour schedule was working all the time. So it seemed like somebody that gave himself to a singular passion and excelled at it. So hats off and respect to him.
And smart comedy at that, philosophical comedy, not just dick jokes, as it were, right?
Right.
Real smart, intelligent comedy, stuff that makes you think. So
yeah, I would be very interested to see what he would be doing today. I think that it would be very interesting because he didn't pull any punches. He wasn't about being politically correct. He just kind of told it like it was. I mean, who do you compare? Who comes close to that today? Bill Burr, maybe.
Bill Burr,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah.
That's about it, really. I mean, there's not a lot else. I mean,
Yep.
even guys from his time don't do that anymore. You know, I mean, Dennis Leary ripped off a lot of Bill Hicks stuff, but Dennis Leary
Right.
certainly isn't going to go down that route. So
No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. So anyway, hats off to George Carlin as well. And so let's talk about these the bad words. And I've got 7 that I sent you guys that were, trying to be a little funny, a little tongue in cheek. But there were, when I posted this show in Facebook, had some comments in the chat that I thought, well, okay, that would be interesting to talk about as well, and that are a little bit more serious. One is blend. Because for a long time, blend was a whiskey bad
was a
word.
dirty word. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair
So,
enough. Yeah.
I mean, when did that turn around? When did that change? How long did it take for that to get done?
I think within just the past couple years,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
I mean, but if you go back and you go back to pre-prohibition, right after post-pro, I mean, and you look especially at what Shinley was doing, it wasn't a bad word then. And some of those whiskeys, and I was one of those people that would talk shit about blends back in the day too, until literally Mike Beach is like, you got to come to the house and try these Shinley minis that I have.
Mhm.
And within 1 or 2 of them, that I was done with that, because some of that stuff was just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. So
Definitely. Yeah, and I would agree with Alan as well. I think that Kevin, probably when both you and I started in this hobby around the same time, it
Right.
was definitely considered a bad word. I think 2 things contributed to it. One was kind of the ability of people to finally go and do all of these tours and realize that, especially amongst the major distillers here in Kentucky, there's not a lot going on that's different in terms of process. Meaning
Mhm.
the actual person operating the still is not affecting the end outcome of what's in that bottle as much as we may have previously thought. So I think people got disenfranchised with what exactly a master distiller was and how that affected certain things. And I know we'll talk more about that later. The other thing I think 3 names come to my mind is Nancy Fraley, Dixon Dedman, and Jackie Zykan, of all people that have made a point and a career out of blending and created some very unique things specifically through that process and kind of championing what it was and how it could make something special. So I think those 2 things in combination to me have been part of that transition from it being, a completely nasty thing to, well, let's hear out what they mean when they say that word. I still think
Mhm.
there's some gray area and some potential BS with it, but I think it's had a transition.
And I think there's a lot of talent in being a good blender.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a little bit of this, a little bit of that, throw it in a bottle and you're done. No, it's tough. It's a real skill set. Another one that was mentioned was master distiller.
Master
not-
Vader.
Not Kentucky's first female master distiller, but just master distiller. How is this become a bad word? And I think, again, this is something that I think has become has carried some negative connotations with it just in the last few years. Would you agree, Alan?
Yeah, I mean, there's not that it's a military term, obviously, but there's some amount of like the stolen valor sort of idea, right? Like, okay, so you're a fucking distiller and you work for a brand that makes you a master distiller. What's your experience? What's your background? Where'd you learn? What spirits can you distill, right? And I've had this conversation several times. Like, no one would argue, for example, Jimmy Russell's a master distiller of Wild Turkey, right? If you want to know something about Wild Turkey, Jimmy's probably going to know the answer, and if he doesn't, he can find the answer very easily, right? But if you drop Jimmy, even, and I'm using a legend for a reason to show how few of these modern master distillers are masters. But if you drop Jimmy into an old Soviet bloc country and gave him a plum tree and a pot still and said, "Make me a Slivovitz," Jimmy would probably be like, first of all, what the fuck is Slivovitz? Right. And then second of all, once you told him what it was and he realized it was plum brandy, he'd probably have an idea of how to do it, but he's not going to master it the first 1, 2, 20, 50, 80 times that he does it.
Mhm.
I mean, to be a really well-rounded master distiller, as far as I consider it, you need to be practiced in all categories. So
Okay.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. You know, it has roots, at least in terms of a concept, as like a trade, sort of the apprenticeship model. And I think not that everything is about pedigree, but like you were saying, you know, who'd you learn from? Where'd you study? And I think that's a good point that you make too, you know, with Jimmy specifically. Mastery in terms of the distilling needs to be given that title by an organization or a company has to do with mastery of their distillation process. And so, you know, each individual context probably has its own side of that.
Yeah.
A little thing that I'll even add to that too. So like, even for myself, obviously being the head alchemist, quote unquote, because if you're going to be pretentious, be all the way fucking pretentious, right? At Spirits of French Lick, those are all my processes. Those are all my mash bills. Those are all my stuff, right? So could I say I was master distiller Spirits of French Lick? Sure. But I'm still 8 years into Spirits of French Lick, finding ways to improve my own stuff. So I'm competing with myself. So I still don't think that I've earned that title yet.
That's why we like you.
Yep.
One of the many reasons.
Yeah, and it does get thrown around a lot. It gets thrown around, I think, too easily. I mean, you know, next to the furthest thing from being a master distiller, but it seems like that people adopt that moniker a little too easily. They give it to themselves in a lot of cases, and that's not really the way it ought to be done. But yeah, I think that there's some work that needs to be done, and I don't know that it ever will be because of the marketing of it, but to really, for master distiller to get the meaning that it really should have. It kind of like being a Kentucky Colonel.
It's another bad word. Yes. No, I agree with you. I think TV also destroyed it. The Moonshiner show didn't help that at all, right? It didn't. It cheapens it for sure.
Yeah.
1,000,000%.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into some of the goofy ones then. And one that I think everybody kind of hates at some point is Smooth.
Smooth.
Smooth is Alan Bishop's cheek.
Yeah, it is.
So now, Smooth is one that honestly we have a lot of musicians on our show, and we'll send them whiskey, and they may like whiskey, but they don't know anything about it really. And a lot of times you'll hear from them, "Hey, this is really smooth. I like this," and I forgive that. I don't have any problem with that because you don't know. And you don't hold yourself out there as knowing. It's when people that, you know, claim to have some level of expertise or knowledge or experience in whiskey, and they're throwing out Smooth as if it's a really great tasting note. That's where I have a problem with it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people start out with what they mean by smooth is that it doesn't scorch my throat all the way down my esophagus. Like that's what they're intending to communicate. There are better words. The thing that pisses me off is when brands use it in the back label of their bottle as a marketing term. If you want to throw that around and you're just a knucklehead, sure, like Kevin said, you get a pass. But when brands do it, that grinds my gears.
Yeah, brands and personalities in particular doing it piss me all the way off. If I like, as a distiller, there's very few words that you could use that mean less than smooth. If you say smooth to me and you're tasting my product, I either haven't done my job at double pot still distillation pulling flavors across, or you can't fucking identify the flavors. But it's got to be one or the other, right? It's right up there with the other one that goes along with this, and I don't think it was on the list, Kevin, is interesting. Like that is that like you just go ahead and tell me it's trash. Don't say it's smooth and interesting.
We'll have to remember that one.
Let's say that sounds like something you've been told before. Alan, do you want to name names?
There's probably at least one time on reviews. I'm trying to think if there's anybody off the top of my head. So I don't know that anybody's ever used the smooth thing that was somebody that, like you guys said, like the common person, like that doesn't bother me. I understand what they're saying.
Right.
The interesting thing tends to come from bourbon snobs who don't understand, and they're not people I'm trying to get as customers in the first place, but they don't understand what I'm trying to do at all, right? And they're, oh, that's interesting. What the fuck does that mean? Define what you find interesting about it.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. There we go.
It wasn't, you know what? It wasn't ribbed for her pleasure.
All right, I'm going to say bonus points for whichever person in the chat can manage to work in all 7 into a comment by the end of the night. I'll send you a sample from my bar. Whoever can pull that off. Live show Mad Libs.
All right, so this next one, this could have fit in with Mike's little post there. Hot. This one, this is hot. And
can it be a hot fresh crack?
It could be. Could be. Yeah, we'll get to fresh crack in just a second, a little bit. And it's kind of got a it's kissing cousin is on this list, but hot. When you look at a review and somebody says this, on the palate it's hot.
Right.
What does that mean?
What are you defining hot as, right? That's the thing. Like, because none of these words are descriptors. They're just words for people who don't know what the fuck they're talking about generally. All right. So hot, what is it? Could be ethanol hot. It could be that there's acrolein in the whiskey, which is also in onions, etc. It could be that there's a little bit of a pepperiness to it. It could be that there's a little bit of like Grains of Paradise character to it. Hell, what if it has some amburana in it and it comes off as cinnamon and you think of cinnamon as being hot, right? But use, if you're going to use simple words like smooth or hot, use modifiers, right? So just say hot garbage. It's hot garbage. And then we all know what you're saying.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's just one of those words that doesn't say or mean anything.
Thank you, Emily.
Nice job.
Yes, I love it. Yeah, it is. It sometimes I think they're meaning that it's spicy. I mean, I've had whiskeys before that were like spicy, like baking spices and things of that nature. But sometimes it's hot, like Alan said, cinnamon. Sometimes it's hot, like like a hot pepper. Like a chipotle note, red pepper note, or something like that.
I think sometimes some of this stuff is cultural too, like especially like with the bourbon boom being what it's been. Like a lot of the people that are out there playing personality, and a lot of them are playing personality. Let's face it, truthfully. And listen, I'm probably the biggest piece of white trash on Bourbon Turntable or on any of the shows in Bar Cart Co-op, just to be honest with you. But a lot of these people, how much do you think that they've really, really trained their palate on anything? And I mean, going to places and eating different types of food and drinking different types of drinks versus they're just parroting what they see, on TV or what they hear from other personalities. So,
yeah, it's definitely something to that.
This is what I'm drinking now. Now
that's hot garbage.
No, this was a neck pour. Neck pour. So this is Fantasyland, right?
1,000,000% it is.
Yeah.
This one really bothers me, and I did a video on several of these before on my Instagram channel at one point, but like the neck pour thing is the most annoying one. And the problem is that there are people who I really respect that use that fucking term. And it doesn't matter how many times I tell them that they're full of shit. The only way that in any way, shape, or form there could be a thing such as a neck pour might be if you'd let that bottle get really hot and it build up some gases in the bottle, right? The other part of it is they tend to use it most often I've noticed this, and there is a correlation here. They tend to use it most often for pot distilled spirits, like what we do, and it's because there's not an understanding that when you're using pot still distillation, it's retention and concentration of flavor. When you open that bottle, pour that neck pour into the fucking glass and let it open up for a minute, guys, before you just shoot it down. It needs some time in the air, you know. Otherwise, you're not going to catch any of that smoothness or that hotness that's coming out of it.
Steve Bayshore chimes in.
There we go.
Taco
What's up,
sauce.
buddy?
Taco sauce.
Yes,
Thanks-
yes, and
thanks for-
a lot of Thank you, Steve. I'd forgotten until just now.
So
No,
I want
go
to
ahead,
play
yeah.
devil's advocate and not to disagree, just to simply ask the question because you brought up kind of my thought. Is there something to letting a whiskey open up and get some oxygen that is not happening in the first pour of a bottle that does happen as the fill level decreases? Or are people using neck pour to mean, hey, I wasn't a big fan of this the first time, and when I came back to it a second time, I liked it a bunch more? That must have been that bad neck pour. You know what I'm saying? Like, where is it coming
Yeah.
from?
That second one would make more sense
Mhm.
if they were using it that way, but I don't typically see them use it that way. And the first one makes sense to some degree if the whiskey gets hot, or let's say if they're using synthetic cork that can't breathe,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Then to me that makes more sense. But again, it's about being descriptive. Like, what
Right.
are you
Sure.
what are you talking about? And if there is a such thing as a neck pour that somehow the bad stuff in the bottle comes to the top, shake up the bottle.
Yeah. Well, we've all had that experience where, I go eat a bunch of Korean barbecue and
Problem
kimchi.
solved.
There's
Mhm.
very few whiskeys that I'm going to enjoy after that meal, but I come
Right.
back to it another week after, and maybe I've eaten something that's a little bit more baseline for me.
Mhm.
That's going to be a whole different experience. So I just wondered if there was anything to that as well. So that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there is with that for sure.
Yeah, and the cousin to neck pour is fresh crack, which I think is kind of like the topic of those Lumi deodorant commercials. So maybe that solves your problem with your neck pour. I don't know, but people like to talk about the fresh crack, and it's a newly opened bottle. Okay.
Yeah. As a distiller, if I want a fresh crack, I get some Irish Springs and go take a shower.
Yeah.
That's how that works. It's like
I
mouthwash for your ass.
I only ever see that of somebody trying to dick swing a little bit, I guess, for lack of a better word. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, fresh crack, and it's whatever, allocated Sazerac product that they found.
Right.
It's never like any kind of flavor. It's always just, oh, I opened it because I've got the money for two.
Right.
I hate that crap.
Yeah, nobody's doing that with, hey, I got a Basil Hayden 80 proof here. Let's go.
You know,
No.
the people I blame for it are the people who think that they have to have everyone on their podcast pull the cork out of the bottle in front of the microphone. That's where that shit started. Yeah, I went there.
Yep.
You did.
Hey, listen, we're not here to make friends. That's all right.
Look, I look like I'm 10 years old at
Apparently
this
not.
point. I got nothing else to lose.
Okay. Another one is drinkable as opposed to what?
Malort.
Have you Malort?
Everything is drinkable compared to Malort. The gasoline I put in my mower is drinkable compared to Malort.
Yep. Everything's drinkable once.
Oh man.
Oh,
So
goodness.
I get this one, and I think this one gets thrown around in your basement quite a bit, Kevin. Where especially for taking down something that's a little bit higher proof,
Mhm.
it's always followed with that first modifier. This is dangerously drinkable, meaning if I had this in front of me, it would hit me way faster than I was ready for. But the word drinkable means absolutely nothing. Of course, it's drinkable. It's a whiskey product that you're meant to drink.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of this one because I I know for a fact I've used the phrase eminently drinkable before.
Yeah.
And what I tend to mean by it is like, so you guys know I like Sazerac, right? And it's
Mhm.
not because it's a great rye, it's because it's a rye that I know there's nothing wrong with, but I also don't have to
Mhm.
analyze it, right?
Right.
And so it's eminently drinkable as a distiller. I don't have to stop and smell the glass every time and try to pick out new notes. I know what it is every single time.
Mhm.
Right. Right. Mike helped us out here a little bit. So Marketing for boons. Yeah.
That was good.
Oh,
Wow.
Boy,
Wow.
Mike's in rare form tonight.
Thank you, Mike.
There have been 3 insults on this show tonight for sure, for at least 2 distilleries and 1 personality for sure. On a roll.
Well, we'll keep score and come up with the totals at the end of the show. But drinkable, to me, a lot of times I'll refer to a whiskey as being dangerous because it is it does not taste up to its proof, and it's very easy to just sip and keep going back to, because there's just enough tannin in it to make you want to reach for something else to drink, but it's not overly tannic in the way that, okay, this is offensive. So drinkable, kind of a better way of saying that, at least for me, is that it's dangerous because it's too easy to drink, a sip too many or 2 sips too many, whatever the case may be.
It's because it's interesting, so it's drinkable.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. We're in for a hot night.
It's interesting, but not interesting enough to actually comment on.
Now, so before we get into the next few, I want to think about, because the first 4 were kind of more geared towards whiskey, and the last 3 are maybe geared more towards music, but I think there's some carryover between the 2. One of which is smooth, because there's smooth jazz. Okay, so that to me means kind of Kenny G.
Smooth, the Kenny G of spirits.
Yes. That's it. Okay, next time it's like, this reminds me of Kenny G.
You take it to the next level, and it's just elevator music.
Yeah, it is.
Muzak.
So smooth, there's smooth jazz, there's Sade and Smooth Operator, which I won't have any quarrel with. And then there's Smooth by Rob Thomas featuring Carlos Santana, which I'll kind of pass on.
Pass, yes.
Yeah. So
it's too hot garbage for me.
Yeah, hot. Who was it that sang that hot song? You remember that they play at weddings, and I hate, and
I only remember the episode with Michael Scott comes back from Jamaica and drives everybody crazy playing that.
That's it. That's the one. That's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one. Yes. All right. Anyway. All right. So let's talk about Epic. This Epic album, Epic. You ever hear that when you're talking about music or whiskey?
Yeah, I hear it all the time, and it's usually my friends that are listening to Pink Floyd on a bunch of mushrooms. It drives me bananas.
Amen.
No, I mean, I think there's a context in, Epic can describe a Derek Trucks guitar solo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else touches that. But I think there's better words, and probably for whiskey as well. I don't necessarily know that I've heard that applied in a whiskey context.
Yeah. Okay, we got an answer here. It is Buster Poindexter. So there's your answer to hot. Thank you. We had that from Jay. We had that from Mike as well. So all right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
So anyway, we're talking about Epic being epic.
I know that I've seen that in reviews or had people say it, but so usually the people that tend to use that word, at least around the audience that I kind of have, it's not usually applied to like bourbon or rye. It's usually to something like really way out there, like the barrel aged absinthe or something like that. And so I guess I'd never thought of that one really bothering me, but I bet I could go on TikTok right now and find a personality that does it that annoys the shit out of me. Almost guaranteed.
Yep.
Almost guaranteed.
Yeah. Now that we've mentioned it, you'll hear it all the time.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
It's it's just overused because of the hyperbole of it. Okay, it's not you may really like something, but to say everything is epic, then it's not. Okay, it's just not.
Blue Run is epic.
Blue Run is, well, they made epic dollars.
Yeah,
they made epic buku dollars. Yeah. So
give me some of that FU money.
Yeah. It's going around. I don't know. It's
Money's like syphilis at this point, just going around. That's a sign of inflation, Kevin.
In the whiskey industry,
Or
yes.
inflammation.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Go to the free clinic. Authentic.
Damn it, I use that one.
Do you?
I do.
Yeah. Do you use it for whiskey or for music?
Both.
Yeah.
Hey, look,
authentic. I've used every one of these. Okay, at some
Sure.
point, I've used every one of these, and now I've just bear the shame of it all. But authentic is one that I've probably used in the last month, if you want to be truly authentic about it. So what does that mean to you, and how do you see it used in descriptors of whiskey or music, and how does it irritate you?
I am glad that you're the real deal and you admitted to that.
Yeah. Alan, are you gonna be shiesty, or are you gonna be nice with your descriptor of this?
I could go either way, right?
Okay.
So usually
I'm gonna be pissy. So
Yeah,
you go ahead.
Okay, I'll go. So if when I'm using it, I'm usually using it in the historical context, right? Or I'm using it in the context of a distiller that actually has some kind of background, whether it's home distilling or they learn from somebody, because you can learn on your own too. And then I'll say, no, that's an authentic thing, whatever, right? But I certainly see it applied to people who hello. That's authentic.
Hi,
right
Penny.
there.
That is. What's up, Penny?
Hey, say hi. You can talk. Say hi.
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 Good night.
Have a good day at school tomorrow. Be authentic.
Yes. So I can certainly see it's more applied to like distillers, right? So it's an authentic whiskey because that's in 15 generations ago, right? Again, there's that, or I think my favorite was Joe Herron trying to justify he was good friends with Jamie Grosser when Jamie Grosser was doing the Popcorn Sutton thing, and Joe Herron was like, "Oh, I want you to meet Jamie Grosser. He's really authentic. He went and spent time with Popcorn Sutton before Popcorn sold him his brand." And I was like, "Yeah, you got bullshitted. That's what happened." So yeah, I mean, I'd see that both ways, but yes, I know it's a little different than probably you guys.
Yeah, no, I definitely see some good uses of that, especially when authentic is a synonym for historically accurate or verifiable or true to tradition. Can't talk. There's lots of Lee W. Sinclair in my body. But I get that there's a valid use for that. The thing that absolutely drives me up a friggin' wall is when that gets slapped on the label and the descriptor for every person with an acoustic guitar from below the Mason-Dixon line.
Fuck yeah,
It
I
drives
agree with
me
that.
absolutely insane. And we're gonna have a show in a week or so about some of the more recent controversies in country music. But you've got this Jason Aldean's and the Morgan Wallens and all these stuff that get labeled as these authentic country singer-songwriters. And I'm like, these guys don't write a fucking word that they're saying. Go look at
Guaranteed.
some liner notes.
And none of them
Half
have
of
a
them can't
callus
even
on their
play.
hands.
Yeah. And so it's just that drives me crazy. But even more so when you hold it up against some of our kind of musical heroes. And I think we all kind of have the same things that we like to look for. Honest self-expression, the ability to write words that translate and connect with other people, the ability to play your own instrument, whatever that may be, and share that with other people. That's okay to call that authentic because that's you doing your thing your way. But all this other crap that gets thrown on to sell records because they hold an acoustic guitar and they're standing in a field next to a barn on the record cover, miss me with that. I'm done. I'm over that completely. I'm not buying it.
Well, it's one that's funny because it's one of those things that's definitely like you can tell it's marketing roots, right? And so marketing, here's the newest one that I've heard recently working on a brand, and from a very good friend of mine who I love dearly, and I'm not trying to pick on him, but reasons to believe, right? That's the authenticity thing from the marketing standpoint. What are the reasons to believe in a brand or a certain thing, right? That annoys me. RTB.
Reasons to believe what?
And buying the brand and the authenticity of the brand. And
is it any good? I mean, that's
right.
I mean, ultimately, it isn't. I mean, whether we're talking about whiskey or we're talking about music, the bottom line is, do I think it's good?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
You know, but yeah. So Mike threw out the white corn is the most authentic of grains. Yes, it is. And then authentic frontier gibberish.
Well played. Well played.
Mike is on a roll tonight.
Authentic master distiller. I can't wait to get your autograph, Mike.
But you know, the whole authentic thing in music, I take it to mean very honest. Okay, in that I've written songs that are about my experience, and Drew, I think that you could certainly authentically wear the authentic moniker with the music that you've written and produced, because I know from whence it came, and it's real to you. Okay, and there are others out there that's definitely the case as well, but to throw it around just cheapens it. And for some of the pretenders and the wannabe cowboys, kind of foreshadowing a new song from Drew, those guys just it cheapens it for everybody else, and just like the master distiller term, because it just gets thrown around so much, it cheapens it for those that are truly deserving of that title. And no, go ahead.
I think it can also apply not necessarily to those sort of performers or distillers, whatever, that are cut from the actual cloth that makes somebody like that truly authentic, right? But it can also apply to people that could be applied to earlier in their career that later in their career are phoning it in too.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
So, which is almost more annoying because then you're like, I don't know. I feel like there's always going to be a certain percentage of the crowd that knows like when somebody's, full of shit when they first show up. Right. But then when you have somebody that did some really cool stuff when they were younger, and as they got older, they started just phoning it in. They're going to always have their defenders that can't ever see through the bullshit.
Yeah.
No, you fucker. He released an album through Starbucks. What the fuck?
Starbucks. Yes. If you're not getting your music through Starbucks, what's wrong with you?
Right.
Oh, you're not smooth at all.
I have sat on that one for a long time, buddy, waiting to use that.
Well, I'm glad you're able to debut it. Speaking of debuting, this bottle itself is not debuted. I've had this for a little while. Nice. But you guys, Alan, you're coming out with a batched version of this, blended, maybe,
Yes.
or you're blending barrels, or I don't know. Whatever. Tell us about this.
Small batch.
Yes. Is it handmade?
I use an air-driven pump and a steam boiler, so sure, maybe kind of.
All right. So tell everybody about this, and then I'll tell everybody what I think.
Yeah, so this is the Hindostan Falls. So Hindostan Falls is the name of both a geological feature as well as a town that has been abandoned, I think, since the 1830s up in Martin County, Indiana. And it was a stagecoach stop. And it was founded by a gentleman who was British, and he'd been stationed in India. So obviously, he picked up the Hoosier dialect, and instead of being able to say Hindostan, he called it Hindostan. But the town was abandoned, I think, in the 1830s because there was kind of a disease that swept through and all that stuff. And there's tons of ghost stories about the place. It's a beautiful place, and it's right next to where we grow the Amanda Palmer corn that we use in that. That's the corn that I bred myself over about 17 years, cross of over 150 different open pollinated varieties. So this is the first release of it that we've done. We've done a couple single barrels, but this is the first bulk release of it that we've done. So I think it was literally only did 9 barrels. I've got plenty more. I had over 150 to choose from, but I picked 9 that I really liked, put those together and blended them, bottled and bond, etc. So it's 80% Amanda Palmer corn, 10% rye, 10% malt. So super simple mash bill. The emphasis is completely on the corn as much as possible. Number 2, char barrels, medium plus toast heads. And I think that one it's maybe a 6 year. Might be 5, might be 6. I'd have to go back and look, but
yeah, this one is 4.5 that I have in my hand. But yeah,
yeah, I'd have to check. I can't remember if I did the 5 or 6 year this year, but I have both.
Okay.
So, but,
yeah, I think it's fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, the grain really comes through on it. There's, to me, it's got honeysuckle, it's got cherry pie, cinnamon, and a little bit of honey smacks on the finish. I think it might be my favorite thing that you've made. Maybe I've got to make sure that I'm not letting recency bias get the best of me in that.
I appreciate that.
But for it to, I go back to, when Lee W. Sinclair was only 2. So there's a lot of great whiskey of yours that I've been able to try, and I think this is fantastic, and I think it's very special.
Thank you.
Because of, if nothing else, because of using the Amanda Palmer corn that you created yourself. So
a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into creating that one right there. So it is it's a smooth, fresh crack of interesting juice.
God, okay. We'll get back to that because we're going to talk about that in a minute. All right. So the last one that I had on the list, and now I've got another, but eclectic. Eclectic.
Eclectic is when you look like a young Uncle Fester.
Oh gosh. I don't know how to feel about this one. I think it's usually used, at least in the context that I hear it, of some pretentious vinyl collector that says, I have really eclectic taste in music.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, let's go look at your shelves. And let's see what decades you have and, what labels you pull from and all that kind of stuff. Not that it's a gut check, but I think it's usually just to try to be a little on the pretentious side in my experience with that.
I have all the Tori Amos digipacks from '92. All of them.
I got Def Leppard on vinyl. Okay.
Yeah, you do.
Yes. Yeah. Eclectic. Yeah. It's kind of like another way of saying interesting or diverse and or offbeat. She has eclectic good looks. So how does this apply in the whiskey world, or does it?
I think it does, but I think I probably have a different way of looking at it than most people do. Like, I wouldn't find that one offensive because I would expect to hear that from one of my friends that's a bourbon snob that doesn't really like my stuff, right? Like, but introducing me to somebody like, oh, his stuff's like really eclectic. And I'm like, that's right, because I didn't fucking make it for you.
Right.
So it wouldn't offend me as much as some of the others would, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So of the ones that we've talked about, what would you find to be the most offensive?
Fucking fresh crack. That and I've said it a million times tonight. Juice, like,
yes,
fuck off. Like, you're just trying to. It's almost like and it's all like guys that are my age or into their 40s and 50s that are doing the personality thing. They're like 10 years, 15 years late to the hipster fucking scene and just trying to pretend like they're cool. No, you just like to drink on the weekends and make stupid videos.
With your cap on backwards.
Yeah. Yes.
Drew, any other thoughts on eclectic?
Yeah, I'm trying to find a way to relate this to the whiskey world, but I don't know of a way to do it that's kind or insightful. So I'm just going to leave it alone.
All right. So let's talk about this one then, because Alan brought it up, and this is kind of a bonus one. I hate it when people call it juice. It's not. You have no understanding of the process whatsoever, or you don't understand what juice is. I don't know, but I don't get that. It is, fresh cracked juice.
Well, first of all, let's call it. Let's look at it for what it really is. It's not juice. It is the piss and shit of yeast that has been very highly concentrated. The juice thing is. I remember the first time I heard that when I was at Copper and Kings, and it was in a meeting, and they were buying barrels, and Joe referred to it as juice, and I just remember being like, "What the, like?" And I know I look like I'm 10 years old right now, but you're not a child, first of all, and second of all, okay. And for me, granted, and I'm in the minority compared to most people, I don't see this as a commodity thing, right? And you refer to it like that, then it becomes a commodity thing, right? And then I have to presume that if you're going to refer to product that you're going to release or product that you bought from someone else as juice, that you really do not care about the quality of it necessarily.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Does it strike you guys as guys, that are new to the hobby, maybe trying to flex a little bit, like, oh, I can drink this. It's just like juice to me.
It's
is there any
industry lingo.
of that?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think it is people that may be new to it. Noobs. There's another one. Noobs. Whiskey noobs. Yes. The noobs will
tell me again how you're not a gatekeeper.
the noobs will they'll use that term juice because it makes it sound like that they know what they're talking about. They've been in this for a long time, and the neck pour on this juice was really hot. Yeah. So yeah, I hate that one. So
put my neck pour in your fresh crack and make some smooth juice.
I was gonna.
That would be epic.
Fresh crack juice and Taco Bell jokes. So I wasn't gonna go there yet, but
we already had a taco sauce reference, so that was good. Oh man, that reference had roots as well. There's some authenticity to that one. I'll tell you right now. So, man. All right. Any other bad words we want to discuss?
I'm trying to think if there's any that I've heard lately that are just. Most of them are just like the industry lingo thing, like like the reasons to believe, and it can be any of those, like, and they always get abbreviated, right? Like RTB, right? And then you're in the middle of a conversation, and because you don't talk like that, and this could be with anybody, like really within the industry, and people drop those in as abbreviations in the middle of a conversation, and it takes my because my brain doesn't work that way. It takes my brain a minute to be like, what the fuck are you so what did you just say? Right? I have to break it down, and it becomes a whole thing. And I can see it in text message, right? And I can see it in email. Don't do it in real life. Just don't.
Yeah. This is Mike has such a great idea. Oh yes, these words should be in Drew's wedding vows.
Might see if I can pull that off.
Yes.
This one is not a new one. It falls in with one of the other ones. It falls in with hot, but it annoys me specifically with rye whiskey. The spicy thing with rye whiskey annoys the hell out of me. First of all, if your rye whiskey is spicy, generally, if it's spicy, peppery in particular, it's because there's an actual fault with it. That is not a natural thing that happens with rye whiskey. Garlic seed ends up in almost all the rye that we harvest in the United States, and that's where a lot of that comes from. But also, again, just like the hot thing, like what do you mean by spicy exactly, right?
Right.
And the problem is most people that comment that it's hot or spicy don't eat hot or spicy things, and so they can't really tell you what it is.
Yeah.
So.
But there is such a general acceptance that rye is spicy. I mean, people. And I'm not just talking about guys that have dorky YouTube shows. I'm talking about people that have been around for a long time and written books and crap like that that are very authentic. They're using the rye spicy thing like it's out of the Bible, and it's simply not.
Listen, that YouTube show is one of my RTBs. Okay.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, to your point, Alan, just I can conceptualize, especially when I first started trying to train my palate, when I was in the industry and even before, of like, okay, spicy is my first perception. Chase that. What is it? Is it baking spice
Right.
spicy? Is it, capsaicin spicy? Is it,
Yes.
maybe I perceived it to be spicy at first, but what I really mean is the oak is a little bit tannic, and so it dries me out the same way that a hot pepper would. Or you really have to chase it beyond that first initial description for it to mean anything.
Right.
Mhm. I'll throw another one in there with the spicy thing. So one that this might be a lesson for people who are still kind of learning that, right? So the difference between black pepper and grains of paradise, and I know a lot of people don't know what grains of paradise is. Drink a Dr. Pepper sometime.
Mhm.
Think of Dr. Pepper versus black pepper, and then you'll have an idea of what
Mhm.
that is. So,
Hmm.
and I did think of another one, sonic aging. That's another dumb fucking thing.
Okay.
That's another just
That's
stupid
just
That's just
fucking thing.
marketing bullshit.
yes. Okay. Oh God.
I'm just going to start having flashbacks to Copper and Kings, guys. It's going to be like I'm in Nom over here in a
Yeah.
minut.
But James
Agent Orange.
Hatfield
That's
said
what
that
I'm
was a
calling it
thing.
from now on. Calling Copper and Kings Agent Orange from now on.
Well, they do have orange in their
Mhm.
colors. Yeah,
Yeah,
so it
big
works.
orange box of doom. Halloween, 365 days a year. It's great. It was fantastic. It's like being in a gang. You had to wear the colors,
Uh-huh. Well, you had to be, authentic about it.
Yeah, honestly, I bet if you, as a matter of fact, I know that their bottles used to say authentic on the descriptor.
Yeah,
I
well,
remember that being on there. So,
if you got to tell somebody you're authentic, you're probably not.
mhm. Well, the sonic aging thing,
Yeah.
and actually, let's just even say aging. Aging's a word that bothers me as a distiller. It's because it's not aging, right? Because something could
Right.
be, you can have a bourbon that's 10 years old, 15 years old, tastes like trash,
Sure.
right? So it's maturation, right?
Maturation. Yes.
When's it mature? Right. That's really the better way to think of
Right.
it, especially as a
Mhm.
distiller. So,
Right.
Right.
I like I told you guys earlier with the Hindostan Falls, I can't remember if I released the 5-year-old or the 6-year-old version of it. Well, why wouldn't I release the 6? Well, because some of our stuff doesn't show well at 6 years old. It shows well at 5, and then at 6, it's not very good. Then at 7, it comes back around, etc.
Right.
But it's
Mhm.
all about that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, it's 2 years ago. I don't remember whenever Fred was big on Lee W. Sinclair,
Mhm.
whatever year that was. And then he's going down his,
2020. Yeah.
he's going down his countdown of 100 whiskeys and, whatever, ranking them from 100 to 1. And, and he was bragging on Lee W. Sinclair, which he should. Anybody that has an honest bone in their body would taste it and have good things to say about it. But one of the things he said, because at that point I think it was 4 years old, and he said, "Imagine what this will taste like when it's 15."
Right.
Well,
Cool.
no offense to Alan, but it may taste like crap.
It might.
because when Alan distilled it and Alan made it, he wasn't thinking about, hey, I think I'll age this for 15 years.
It also wasn't distilled to mature that long, right? It was made to be a younger whiskey. Right now, the mic drop 7-year-old stuff that came from Copper and Kings that I did was phenomenal. But honestly, if I had my druthers, I would honestly rather have the 4-year-old Lee Sinclair over top of it.
Mhm.
So,
Yep.
and they get just age chasers, and it's still It's still out there. Have you guys watched the new Justified yet? Like, there's a whole scene
Mhm.
with Blanton's in
Yes.
it, right? Oh yeah, it's a whole. Fuck off. Fuck off. It's not authentic.
It's not authentic, but it is pretty epic. So, all right. Anybody got anything else? Any others? Okay.
I don't know,
No.
but I feel pretty good after this conversation, airing all my grievances. So maybe I'll cancel therapy this week. Just I drink and whined with my friends.
I
Tried-
do feel pretty good.
Tried really hard to get enough F-bombs in there to really make George Carlin proud.
He would be very happy. He would. Yes. So if you haven't seen that George Carlin bit, you can Google it, you can look it up. If most people have, but the problem we have here is, well, there are two problems. One is Carlin's 7 words now probably all but maybe 2 are commonplace in cable TV now. But with our 7 that we came up with, it's just as we're going along, we came up with others, and people in the chat have offered others. I mean, there's a lot of stupid stuff out there. So don't be an idiot. To take the advice that Dwight on The Office got. Don't be an idiot. If an idiot would do this, I wouldn't do that thing. So if an idiot would say that about music or whiskey, don't say it.
Don't say that.
Don't say that thing.
That's great advice. Another good word that really bothers me is inappropriate, as in I listened to your podcast and it was very inappropriate. Why was it inappropriate? Because I was driving my kids to school.
Why are you listening to a whiskey podcast driving your kids to school?
Yes. Fuck you. Fuck off. Don't listen. That's the easy answer. You had the choice. You've got Spotify. There's other stuff.
Oh gosh.
Oh, so inappropriate. Anyway.
All
right.
Inappropriate whiskey company.
All right.
That needs to happen.
Yeah, well, I think it already has. All right. Was this fun? Was this worthwhile?
Absolutely was for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I honestly, if people didn't like it, I don't care. It's like making love to your wife, and you get yours and she doesn't get hers. You just got to look her right in the eye, and you say, "Listen, we both started at the same time. It's not my fault. You can't keep up."
Jeez. Oh,
And
gosh.
all of this tonight brought to you by Alan not drinking.
Oh, we can't have that anymore. All right. Well, Alan, why don't you tell people where they can find you on social media and hear more of your uproarious humor that is quite inappropriate?
Check out the alchemistcabinet.com. Check out Distiller's Talk on Spotify. Check out the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute on YouTube, as well as on Spotify. And if you have Ghost, you have everything wherever you get your podcast.
Okay. All right, Drew.
Awesome. Yeah, if you're a social media person, you can find me on Instagram at drew.crawley63. Got a website. It's drewcrawleymusic.com. That'll be the most up-to-date place for shows and releases. We've got a record coming out slated for November, and I'll tease it on the live show for the 5 people that are still watching or whatever the case may be. But there might be another single on the way in between now and then. So
Awesome.
we've got some things in the can that I just don't feel like sitting on anymore. I'm ready to get them out there. So we keeping an eye out.
Oh, speaking of sitting on the can, Mike had another comment. Yeah, yes, we did. And I got to tell you, the dress rehearsal for the show, the first 20 minutes of the show was really, really good. I don't know what the actual show was in comparison, but hope you enjoyed it anyway.
I felt like I couldn't
man.
tell the same jokes again. Like
I
you have to step
know.
it up.
I tried to set some things up again, and it just didn't work. It wasn't authentic. That's what it was. It wasn't authentic. But hey, you can watch this show on YouTube. We'll it'll be there forever as long as YouTube is there, which
Until
who
they
knows?
ban us for being offensive.
Well, yes. Who knows? This show may get taken down. But you can watch the show on YouTube. You can listen to it on podcast format in Apple, Spotify, or Google. You can catch up on some old shows if you want to. We wouldn't mind. So tell everybody about it. You can subscribe to our page where we post all our shows. You can join into our Facebook group, where we post about bands that we're listening to, whiskey that we're drinking. Like I told you, Parker Barrow, really great music. Just listen to him out on the deck and drinking whiskey. I don't remember what I was drinking that night, but it was good. I had a good time and enjoyed that music. And so now we got somebody else to be on the show. It'll be a lot of fun. All right. Anything else, guys?
Award-winning whiskey.
Award-winning whiskey. Oh, God.
We got a whole other show on that.
All right. We're going to be here for another hour. No, we're not. We're not going to do that.
That's called triggering.
But I do have a Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Fame show coming up at some point that there'll be some venting there too. But
there should be.
Hey, but in all fairness, our friend Jerry Dalton,
Yes.
he's in, man.
That's awesome.
He's in. Yep. Got to see him last week. He's fantastic. So,
Awesome.
all right. So, without further ado, wasting any more time of anybody. Thank you for watching and joining in. Thank you for your patience with my screw up at the beginning of the show. Hope you like the show anyway. If you don't, I really can't do anything about that. So it's kind of on you at this point. Until next time, cheers, love, and free bird.
Cheers.
So smooth. So smooth.
Good night.